What time are you going to go to bed? What can you get ready?
Right now on the National Weather Desk, tracking the tropics. Could a major storm form in the Gulf of Mexico?
A lot of variables in place later on next week to see if anything develops.
Flooded Florida. Heavy rain leaves a community under.
Got my husband at home.
Right now on the National Weather Desk, tracking the tropics. Could a major storm form in the Gulf of Mexico?
A lot of variables in place later on next week to see if anything develops.
Flooded Florida. Heavy rain leaves a community underwater. Ready for fall? What you need to know about Sunday's equinox.
The equinox is when the sun is directly over the equator.
Deepening drought. A lack of rain raises concerns in parts of Ohio.
But it's going to take some time to really get back to where we need to be.
And it's a packed weekend for football across the country. We'll check the forecast for some of the biggest games.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Lindsay Mastis, and if you look at a radar or satellite image, you won't see anything of note in the Western Caribbean. But in the next few days, elements could come together to produce a tropical storm or hurricane, one that we need to watch closely into next week. Meteorologist Jennifer Collins is tracking the tropics this morning.
We're watching 3 areas in the Atlantic for potential development. 2 have a low chance over the next 7 days out in the central Atlantic. Closer to home, we're watching the Western Caribbean. Showers and thunderstorms have developed across parts of Central America. Now, nothing has developed yet, but we're looking at late next week for that potential development. Right now, it has 40% chance at this time from the National Hurricane Center. What we do know is a plume of tropical moisture will increase across Central America and eventually work its way north towards the Gulf of Mexico. There will be a lot of variables in place later on next week to see if anything develops and what it may look like. We'll be watching high pressure across the central United States. So any track would take maybe a potential system towards Texas or even close to Florida. At this time, we don't really know very much, but we'll continue to keep you updated. Just something to monitor right now.
Heavy rain fell in Florida on Thursday, leading to flooding on several roads. There's a coastal flood advisory remaining in effect throughout the weekend. Luli Ortiz is in Port St. Lucie with more.
Countless streets in Port St. Lucie still underwater after Thursday's heavy downpours pounded this part of the Treasure Coast. But before the sun went down, many drivers were stranded in their cars. At one point, 6 students and a bus driver became stuck in a ditch. They're all safe now after being picked up by another school bus to continue their trip home. As some people on kayaks paddled down the flooded roads nearby, this man's pickup truck got stuck in a ditch on Southwest Savona Boulevard during his drive home.
My friend here came all the way from Fort Pierce, but the road snapped and there was a lot of traffic. The officer asked us to clear the road a little bit, give him some time, and we've been sitting here.
Sitting here for at least 3 hours.
What would be the best way to pull her?
Until these teens came to the rescue.
And I come over here and I see someone stuck. I'm like, well, they've been there probably for a while, so I was like, I might as well help them. I mean, I got the truck for a reason.
These persistent young men seem going above and beyond, from tying ropes to directing traffic safely so that Adam can tow the vehicle out and get the driver back on the road. Despite the flooded mess, neighbors helping neighbors was a common sight around here.
And enjoy the last days of summer while you can, because it all ends Sunday morning. That is when the Earth reaches the equinox. Days and night are about equal in length and fall officially begins. Meteorologist Mark Pena has more.
All right, the autumnal equinox is here. It arrives on Sunday, the first day of fall. That's what we're tracking for you. And this is going to happen specifically right at about 8:44 a.m. Eastern time. That's going to be in the morning on Sunday. So what does this mean? Well, the equinox is when the sun is directly over the equator, because we know that it's the Earth swivels on an axis of about 23.5 degrees. And as it continues to swivel towards the Tropic of Capricorn, we're going to see equal sunlight on the Earth. And as we head farther and farther towards the first day of winter, our days will get shorter here in the northern hemisphere, while the southern hemisphere experience summertime. They're going to get longer days as our days get a little bit shorter.
And the northern lights are one of the many natural wonders that make living in the northern parts of the country so special. Well, recently we have seen the aurora creep further and further south. Meteorologist Trevor Robideau spoke with an expert about what sparks the lights and how scientists work to predict how intense they'll be.
The northern lights, a beautiful natural event. Some may even call it the holy grail of skywatching, a truly fantastic spectacle that stems from the activity of the sun.
There's a phenomena on the sun called a coronal mass ejection, and that's a really long term that we abbreviate to CME. And what that is a giant blob of the sun's atmosphere that gets expelled from the sun, and sometimes those come towards Earth.
They create an interaction with the Earth's magnetic field, causing a geomagnetic storm. This energy gets deflected to the poles and gives us the beautiful dancing lights. The intensity of any one storm can be hard to predict, but numerical modeling and expert experience is fairly accurate.
It's based on the orientation of the magnetic field. We don't really know how that field is oriented until it gets to a satellite that's about 1 million miles from Earth. And you can think of it as a buoy out in the ocean or out in the lake. But that's when we get our first glimpse of the magnetic field. So our initial estimates really just lean on a lot of experience and some instinct, I guess.
Portions of Ohio really need rain, and those areas are now approaching extreme drought levels, which would be the worst that they've been in more than 2 decades. Ellie Burgett has more.
According to state officials, Ohio is currently experiencing its worst drought since the Dust Bowl of 1930, and the Miami Valley is being hit hard, with a large portion of the area experiencing severe drought conditions and moving closer to extreme drought conditions every day. Because of this, a large portion of plant life has become dry and flammable, and many communities have advised their citizens to avoid starting outdoor fires, even small ones.
When it's a windy day and the wind kicks up and moves that fire from one area to the other, something seemingly small and safe can become dangerous in a hurry.
Communities are also advising their residents to reduce the amount of water they are using for daily tasks. The city of Bellbrook saying in part, quote, "The water table has declined by 4 inches since June 3rd, 2024. While fluctuations are normal, this is the lowest it has been since 2007. We continue to monitor the water levels closely and address any changes." And to put it simply, to get back to some level of normalcy, we just need one thing.
Well, we need to get a lot of rain into next week, perhaps a little bit more of an active weather pattern, but it's going to take some time to really get back to where we need to be.
Ski season is set to go on as usual at Nevada's Mount Rose Ski Resort, and that wasn't a given last week. Wildfires were approaching the mountain property. Sophie Lincoln looks at how the resort was able to avoid being burned during the historic Davis fire.
People leave the ski area boundary and ski down to where that fire started and get picked up or have a car there. So it was relatively close as the crow flies.
Director of Risk Management at Mount Rose Ski Resort, Michael Ferrari, says no fire reached the private property or the U.S. Forest Service property where Mount Rose operates. He says this was a combination of luck and work from both fire crews and the resort.
We were prepared for the worst, but ultimately I think actually the mountain help to shield the wind from where the fire was and from town.
Of course, fire crews were also hard at work trying to contain the fire, and Mount Rose was actually able to help in these efforts.
When the firefighters were fighting along Slide Access Road and below our Winters Creek Lodge, they were able to utilize our water system.
This all-hands approach to protecting the resort came in part from seeing the devastation that the Caldor fire caused Sierra Tahoe 3 years ago.
They lost a lot of their infrastructure, lifts, buildings, things like that, equipment. So we all try and learn from events when they happen. And so we had a plan that was sort of a reaction to what happened to them.
While the fire plan certainly helped the resort this time around, Ferrari says his team also learned from the Davis fire in terms of improving that plan.
For all the latest, most up-to-date weather news, be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us all on your favorite platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we're going to see the autonomous boat that officials are using to help map the Great Lakes. And we'll find out how the weather is impacting vineyards in Southwest Michigan.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look the Northeast. We have a big storm still spinning a few hundred miles offshore in the Northeast today. Temperatures will range from 60s through parts of New England to 80s back into New York and New Jersey. That's because some clouds are expected with a stiff northeast wind for a good chunk of New England here. That area of low pressure continues to spin here. Notice we're brightest over western zones. We have a high surf advisory in effect due to this storm, and we're watching some of the high tides for some minor coastal flooding.
I'm meteorologist Amy Aronson, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Another warm day ahead of us. It's going to feel like summer again with temperatures close to 80 by midday. Heading through the afternoon, we end up in the low to mid-80s. And we're not tracking any rain. Things look dry. Things look quiet on Friday. Area of low pressure stays well offshore to our east. But eventually, we've got to watch out to our north and west. Cold front will be dropping in for the weekend. Saturday, mostly dry. It's actually late Saturday night that front's going to send us a chance for some showers. And that's the scene here.
Good Friday morning, meteorologist Michael Arenberg checking out your Southeast regional forecast. Fairly quiet today. It looks like there'll just be a few isolated showers for areas of Virginia, North and South Carolina, and Central and South Florida. Still a chance for afternoon storms. Other than that, west of Atlanta through Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, Texas, clear to partly cloudy skies with high pressure and sinking air firmly in place. High temperatures still hot, upper 80s to low 90s throughout the Southeast, 85 in Jacksonville.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
An autonomous surface vessel is being used to find out more about the Great Lakes. Cody Bear is showing us the watercraft and how it's being used.
How many square miles our Great Lakes have and how unmapped they are. We're going to need this type of technology to basically cover that entire expanse.
Ocean Infinity has partnered with Michigan Technological University to send this search vessel on the water in hopes to map the entirety of the Great Lakes by 2030.
Less than 15% of our lakes are mapped at high resolution, and that means we know and understand more about the features on the surface of the moon than we do about what's at the bottom of our own lakes, which are our backyard.
Michigan Tech says understanding more about the Great Lakes is crucial to keeping them preserved.
The Great Lakes are a huge resource, and understanding what is at the bottom of these lakes can help us, better manage those water resources and be able to protect them.
There's one more unique thing about this watercraft. The boat's captains aren't on board. They're right here. This is their deck, and this is their helm.
We're pioneering the unmanned surface vessel.
The boat is an autonomous surface vessel. It controls itself entirely, only having a remote crew in case of emergencies. Ocean Infinity says it will help them work faster in putting eyes on the lake bed.
It's something that we can program through a computer, set it on a mission, and keep an eye on it, but for the most part forget that it's even over there working.
The first mission of this vessel was to find the wreckage of a 1968 plane crash in Lake Superior. That mission was conducted last week.
Within about a 3.5-day survey time, we ended up covering over 46 square miles of lake bed.
As they continue to analyze the data gathered from the expedition, they use it as a learning opportunity for the next year to come in exploring the Great Lakes.
And the past few weeks have been dry, very dry in southwest Michigan. But despite the lack of rain, wine vineyard owners say their grapes are doing very well. Colin Rogers has more.
Lots of plants and trees are showing signs of stress across West Michigan after a very dry 4 weeks. Although some younger vines are showing signs of stress drought, most vines are doing fine at Fenn Valley Vineyards.
This is actually kind of the climate that they're used to. As long as they're established and they have a fully established root structure, which takes a couple of years, they really don't need a lot of surface water with our soil types.
The dry weather along with warmer temperatures are helping area vineyards have a successful season.
It's that cycling of the daytime high and the evening lows that really helps to drive ripeness efficiently. So it really is set up to be a pretty spectacular season in terms of getting fruit ripe. Obviously, you never know until the grapes are processed, but we're sitting really good right now.
Les Barent says this year could be one of the best they've had in the last 15 years.
With a drier season like we're having right now and a warm season, we're ahead of schedule for ripeness, which is great in general because it should allow us to bring fruit in that's fully ripened.
This is great news for vineyards and wine lovers around the region.
So what you're going to see on a year like this, theoretically, is bigger flavors. You're going to have fully developed what we call varietal character, which is basically, do the grapes taste like the grapes are supposed to taste like? That's going to develop very rapidly in this type of a weather pattern.
Chrysanthemum season is commonly known as mum season. It's underway. Eric Peterson is in Green Bay with a look at how the season is going and what impact the weather is having on the colorful flowers.
Normally it's a little cooler, so it's kind of like here comes fall and people do it that way, but it's just that season that people like to change out the flowers they have.
Honeymoon Acres greenhouse owner Joe McShaw says he started the season with more than 35,000 chrysanthemums, or mums for short. He says he sells more than 100 different varieties here.
We have different mums that bloom at different times. So we'll have some that bloom early, some bloom mid-season, some bloom late.
We come here for holiday to Honeymoon Acres, and we buy mums, and we buy the pumpkins, and we haul them all home, and then we sit there on the patio and look at them.
How do the mums look?
Very nice. Yeah. I like the ones that have the most buds.
McShaw says the season typically winds down when the temperatures start to drop and remain below the freezing mark.
And they're all semi-hardy. They will work in our climate with a little helping of a little bit of mulch. I'd always like to say about a third of them will come back over winter. The other plants that are in the smaller pots, they could take them, they could plant them. Evergreen branching overwintering is the best. About 6 inches of evergreen branching will help them get over winter. And some do, some don't, but that's the fun of it.
The changing climate is having major impacts in Texas. Areas that once saw little rain are now experiencing more and more flash flooding. Drew Powell is looking at how officials are working to help solve these new flood problems in rural areas.
when it does rain, we can have significant flooding.
The planning group was formed as an effort to try to raise awareness and to help rural communities in the Texas Panhandle understand they not only need to be prepared, but they need to have a plan should a flooding event occur.
We ask municipal for input. We ask industries in this region. We ask agriculture in this region, environmental groups in this region to have input on flood topics, and we feed those topics to the state plan down in Austin.
Here we only get, small amounts of rain. They get even less in El Paso and farther west. But even out there is risk, especially from flash floods and floods that happen less frequently. In areas like ours where it doesn't rain as much, flood infrastructure is more likely to get neglected. People don't appreciate the risk because it happens less frequently.
Flood mitigation plans that are coming from this region will be submitted to the Texas Water Development Board. And the hope is that by the fall of 2028, the state will incorporate that into a statewide plan.
And there are some great games in the world of football this weekend, so we're going to turn to meteorologist Katie Morgan for this week's football forecast.
Let's take a look, and we're going to start with our college matchups for the Saturday afternoon game. In Ann Arbor, Michigan, USC in town. That's University of Southern California taking on Michigan. Temperature should be around 80 degrees with sunshine. As we head to Auburn, Alabama, an afternoon game. Temperatures look to be around 90 in Auburn with a mixture of sun and clouds. And heading to Oklahoma in Norman, we've got UT taking on Oklahoma, and this is going to be a night game, so some late evening sunshine with those temperatures in the low 90s at 6 o'clock in the evening. And then on Sunday, a couple great games going on here. We've got the Dolphins in town in Seattle taking on the Seahawks. That an afternoon game. Temperatures look to be pretty nice, comfortable in the upper 60s with a few showers possible. Chargers in Pittsburgh, we'll see highs right around 80 degrees at noon. And the Ravens versus the Cowboys in Dallas, Texas. Thankfully, it's a dome stadium. Temperatures are going to be quite toasty in the mid-90s. I'm meteorologist Katie Morgan. Hope you have a great weekend.
And time now for a short break, but in honor of this weekend's fall equinox, let's take in some views of the changing leaves.
Well, good Friday morning, everyone. Rain starts to sneak into the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. Still going to be awfully warm. 95 in Lincoln today, 92 in Kansas City, 93 in Cincinnati. That rain slowly tries to make its way into the off to the East Coast. Cooler air back behind that. It's going to be a cold front, which will bring us more seasonable temperatures by the time we get into early next week.
Well, good Friday morning to you. Meteorologist Chris Suchan. Look at our forecast across the region today, starting off with the 70s, even some low 80s along the Gulf Coast. Afternoon, mostly sunny skies, hot, humid day in the 90s. May get a random little shower deep South Texas, perhaps a shower up around Amarillo late day Friday. And then Saturday's forecast, starting off with the 70s, slight rain chance Texas Panhandle, otherwise mostly to partly sunny skies and hot.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Friday morning to you. The final one of summer 2024, by the way. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Out west, it's beautiful. 64 in the city by the bay with a little touch of fog through the Golden Gate. Morning fog, afternoon sun for the Emerald with 64 in Seattle and back into the 80s later today out of Las Vegas. Pretty quiet around here. Just a couple of late day thunderstorms in the Four Corners region. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
And as we mentioned, this Sunday is the official start of fall. So when can you expect to see those leaves start changing? We're going to take a look at a recent TikTok post from meteorologist Natalie Walters to find out.
Well, fall is almost officially here. Leaves are already starting to change across parts of the United States. So let's see where you're expected to see peak color wherever you live. So this is what things are currently looking like. This is from explorefall.com. You could see already parts of the Rockies already seeing colors change. In fact, some spots already seeing peak color. Parts of the far northeast as well as parts of the Appalachians starting to change as well. So this map here shows average peak color, and you can see the further south you are, the later those colors change. So the darker brown indicating late November through parts of Louisiana into parts of southern Texas. The lighter green, including Missouri into parts of Illinois, Indiana, that's late October, but some of our northern states, including parts of the Great Lakes, changing as early for peak color as early October.
And thank you so much for Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lindsay Mastis. Make it a great day today, Friday. You're going to have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Have a happy start to your fall.